Hi everyone, and welcome back to my kitchen. Today I have a quick and easy cake recipe for you, and I'll be making my raspberry ricotta cake with raspberry jam and whipped cream. You guys are going to love this easy single layer cake. It comes together in no time and it's so incredibly delicious. I'm going to start things off with the ricotta cake batter, fold in some fresh raspberries, almond flour, and then I like to finish the cake off with some slivered almonds on the top. And then for serving, we're going to add spoonfuls of raspberry jam and some whipped cream on the side. This cake is great for any time of the day. You can enjoy it in the morning with a cup of coffee or hot tea, or enjoy it after dinner as dessert. For the full list of ingredients and the recipe, make sure to head on down that video description box and follow that link over to my website. You'll find all the information online. Meanwhile, let's get started. I am preheating my oven to 335 degrees Fahrenheit, and I've lined the bottom of a 9-inch springform pan with parchment paper, and I've sprayed down the sides with the baking spray. I'm going to set this aside for now. We're going to need a large mixing bowl, and I've softened 1 cup of unsalted butter at room temperature. And I always recommend using unsalted butter for baking, because that way you can control the amount of salt in the recipe. We'll drop that in. We'll need 1 cup of white granulated sugar and 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. And I'll use my hand mixer to cream together the butter and the sugar for a few minutes until the butter is light and fluffy. We'll need 4 large eggs for today's cake recipe, and I recommend bringing these up to room temperature, which will allow the cake batter to bake more evenly and you'll get a fluffier cake. Add in the eggs and give this a mix until they're well beaten. Next, I'm going to add in 1 cup of whole milk ricotta cheese, and I recommend using this full fat version versus a low fat ricotta cheese because it's going to make the cake more richer tasting and just creamier and fluffier. And then we'll just give this a quick mix to get it combined with the batter. For my dry ingredients, I've measured out 2 cups of all-purpose flour. To that I'm going to add in half a cup of almond flour. We'll need 2 teaspoons of baking soda, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, and 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Mix that thoroughly together. And I'll sift the dry ingredients into the cake batter to ensure I don't get any clumps of flour or baking soda. I'm also going to pour in 2 teaspoons of lemon juice. This is going to help activate that baking soda to make the cake lighter and fluffier. And I'll grab my mixer and mix this all together. And now for the raspberries, I'm going to be using 2 cups of fresh berries. You can use frozen ones, but you want to make sure that you thaw them out beforehand. And I do think that the fresh ones work better for this recipe. I've placed about 3/4 of the raspberries into a little mixing bowl. I'm going to dust them with a tablespoon of cornstarch. And this way the berries won't sink into the bottom of the cake batter, and also the cornstarch is going to help thicken the berry juices as the cake bakes in the oven. I'm going to add about 1/3 of my cake batter into the bottom of the prepared pan. We're going to spread that evenly to the edges. I'll add about half of my cornstarch dusted raspberries into the pan. Just press them lightly into the cake batter. I like to layer the raspberries for this cake so you have even distribution of berries with every bite. And then we can add more cake batter on top. I'll sprinkle some sliced almonds on the top and add more fresh raspberries. Just gently press them into that cake batter. This is going to be so delicious, and it looks really pretty too. And my raspberry cake is ready for the oven. It's going to bake at 335 degrees Fahrenheit for about an hour and 15 minutes. Sometimes it takes a little bit more time, but you want to bake it until a toothpick inserted into the center comes out clean. Once this is done baking, I'm going to let it cool on a wire rack. Meanwhile, I'm going to show you how to make a batch of some simple whipped cream. It's going to be the perfect complement to this simple cake. I've measured out 1 cup of very well chilled heavy cream. To that I'm going to add in a 1/3 cup of powdered sugar. And we'll need 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla extract. And I'll use my mixer for a few minutes until this reaches stiff peak stage. My cake is all done. I've taken it out of the springform pan and I let it cool on a wire rack. I just placed it on a little platter here with some parchment paper, and this is ready to be enjoyed. And I'm loving the raspberries and the sliced almonds on the top. They just make this cake look so incredibly pretty. And I'm going to use a serrated knife to slice into this cake. Check that out. Isn't that one incredible cake? I just love how fluffy it is. And if you'd like, you can add a little bit of raspberry preserves or raspberry jam to add even more berry flavor. Just like to drizzle it over the top of the cake slice. And then I transferred my whipped cream into a pastry bag, and I'm using a Teco tip number 847. I'm going to add a little dollop of some whipped cream on top too. And I want to show you guys a close-up of the texture of this cake. It is so moist and delicate, and I love having the raspberries inside there too. This is going to taste really great with a cup of coffee. And that's it for my easy raspberry ricotta cake. This turned out so pretty and elegant. It's going to be perfect for any occasion, any time of the year, and any day. Don't forget to head on down that video description box for the full list of ingredients and the written recipe up on my website. I'm also going to have the recipe up with metric measurements. Time to dig in and enjoy. This looks so good. I mean, the texture is incredible. Looks so light and fluffy. I'm going to grab some of that whipped cream off the top, a little bit of the raspberry jam. I also like to have that. I wish I could have this cake every single day. It is so incredibly delicious. It is so light and moist. It just kind of melts into your mouth, and it's packed with all that raspberry flavor. You also get a little bit of the flavor coming through from the almond flour, and you have sliced almonds on top. Love having a little bit of that whipped cream in there too. This is just to die for delicious. Just wow. And I love the fact that it comes together so quickly too. You can have this in the oven and baking in like 15 minutes. Just make sure to take out the butter and the eggs a little bit earlier in the day, get the eggs up to room temperature, get the butter softened, and then the actual process of making the cake is super, super quick. I hope you guys enjoyed this cake at home as much as I do. It is just incredible. You're going to love it. Don't forget to head on down that video description box, and thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time with a new recipe.